Welcome to The Megyn Kelly Show, your home for open, honest, and provocative conversations. Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to The Megyn Kelly Show. Today we've got Chrissie Mayr. Chrissie's a comedian and host of the Chrissie Mayr podcast, and she also hosts a show on Compound Media Network, which we'll get to in 1 second. But she is hilarious, and she's very insightful about our society, and she also happens to be a Trump supporter, the rare person in comedy, rare woman in particular, who actually supported President Trump, though she voted Democrat, well, Green Party to be specific, in the previous election in 2016. So how does that kind of a person, right, who is a feminist, who was a Democrat, who voted Stein, wind up not only a Trump supporter, but actually at the Capitol Hill riot, though she didn't storm the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. We're going to get into it. You'll hear a bit of her magic on some very funny bits and how she's been sort of targeted for cancellation multiple times, and what she says changed her way of thinking. You know, what got her politically activated the other way. So we're going to get to Chrissie in 1 second. First, this. So they say you can't have it all, but that's not entirely true. With Blinkist, you can have all the most important ideas and takeaways from the world's top nonfiction bestsellers, all in fun 15-minute reads or listens. Yes, the answer to my prayers is here. Use these blinks, that's what they call them, to get inspiration, learn more about books you'd like to read next, broaden your knowledge, and get new perspectives. Like if you are hearing about some hot book, but then you hear something like, oh, but it's 850 pages. Blinkist is your friend. Blinkist will bring it to you in 15 minutes. So you're like, okay, I know what everybody's talking about. And when I have, a free month, I will go read that book. They take, again, top nonfiction books. They will pull out the key takeaways. They will put them into these 15-minute text and audio splainers called blinks. With over thousands of titles in 27 different categories, plus shorecasts, which are blinks for podcasts. Hello. The Blinkist app gives you the knowledge that you need in the time you actually have. Like if you want to read that new book, What Happened, or a short history of Brexit, maybe you want to read The Prince or Letters from a Stoic. Stoicism is big now. You can do that on Blinkist. And I like Blinkist because I have read both the actual book and then the Blinkist version. And I can tell you that they hit all the most salient points. And it does help you decide whether you want to read the full thing. So check it out, because right now, Blinkist has a special offer just for our audience. Go to Blinkist.com/MK and start your free 7-day trial and get 25% off a Blinkist premium membership. That's Blinkist, spelled Blinkist. Blinkist.com/MK to get 25% off and a 7-day free trial. Blinkist.com/MK. All right, so you did not start off wanting to be a comedian. It's not like you were dying to go into comedy. In fact, as I read, you were dying to go into journalism.
Oh, yes.
What happened there?
I really wanted to be a reporter, went to college for communications. And then I had my first internship at Dateline at NBC, my junior year of college. And I got a load of Stone Phillips, and he sounded exactly off camera as he did on camera. And he sounded, I was like, wow, this doesn't seem like my speed. I just found it pretty boring. And I just was like, wow, this can't be it. And I don't know, looking back, I was really proud of myself because I was able to reach out at the time to the only female writer on Conan at the time, Allison Silverman. And I was able to get myself an internship for Conan for the following year, my senior year at college. And I was so happy I did, because once I got there, I was like, oh, wow, these are my people, just talking to the writers. It's not like I was having that much face-to-face time with Conan. I was like, here's your coffee. But like, that was very exciting to me.
You're like, I can do this.
Yeah, I have what it takes.
So should we be concerned that when I met the likes of Stone Phillips, I was like, yes, these are my people?
Oh, no.
I don't know, I'm concerned. Maybe not him in particular, but man, he is like at a central casting for news anchor, isn't he? With like the stony
Yes.
jaw, like the blockhead, the deep voice,
He
Yeah.
was born to do that. Absolutely.
Right? You were thinking, no, can't relate. This is how I was in the law, by the way. It's one of the reasons I got out of the law is I was looking around my law firm. Great, great guys. But, I'm like everyone there had two ex-wives and two mortgages and a bunch of private school tuitions to pay. And they couldn't
Wow.
leave. They had the golden handcuffs on. And all I could think of was that clip from Legally Blonde, where a young Reese Witherspoon says she wants to go to law school, and the dad is like, law school is for people who are boring and ugly and uninteresting, and you're none of those things, Button.
And then she was like, "What? Like it's hard?" That was great.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
So okay, so you decide the Conan O'Brien route is much more interesting to you. By the way, like Dateline though, that's a great. I mean, even I, with my bitter feelings about NBC, they're mixed. They're not all bitter. Little bitter. I love Dateline. I love the team on Dateline, on cam and behind the scenes. I still love that show. If you're not listening to the Dateline podcast in your spare time, you're just wasting your life because they're gripping. Keith Morrison, like I love that stuff. So did you get exposed to like the murder team or what were you, was that back in the day of like doing the,
I was
dicey truck
exposed to
fires?
mostly the photocopying team. My job was to make copies of the rundowns and kind of like pass them. Again, a lot of retrieving coffee. I'm really good at getting coffee at this point. I've had a lot of experience, and
I was
just
exposed to the photocopy team.
yeah, yeah.
So
They didn't
that,
really
yeah,
give
okay.
me any major responsibilities, but it was a good overview. It was. I mean, honestly, as a college student, just to get into the building at 30 Rock is exciting, and to
Mhm.
be able to get college credit for going in 2 days a week was really. It was great. It was like my first real life kind of job experience, which is far more useful than anything I did or learned in college.
Yes, 100%. I have an intern, by the way. She's sitting here with me now. Her name is Anna. Abby is not with me for the summer. She's here. Abby's on this call. But she's at her house with her kids, and I'm down the shore, as they say, for the summer. So I have an intern, and I'm drinking coffee, but she didn't get it for me, right? And how's
Oh
it going so
wow!
far, Anna?
It's been great.
See, she loves it. She loves me. You can't hear any of it, but it's a huge thumbs up.
Anna, clap if you're okay.
Okay.
See? Nailing it. I tell you, I'm struggling this morning, Chrissy, because I went out last night to our friend's house and I was overserved. He made me the most giant martini I've ever seen in my life. It didn't need to be that big.
Oof! You were on the Jersey Shore?
Jersey Shore, baby.
Oh,
Jersey.
wow. Great. I'm doing some shows out there in the next week or so. So I'm
I
excited.
heard you say that on the 20th. I was listening to your podcast with Tatiana Ibrahim.
Oh, yeah. I mean, wow. I was so inspired just by talking to her. I don't have any kids, but I
She's
was like, wow.
she's crazy fearless. She's the one our audience may not know her by name, but they know the clip who went off on her school board. She's like, "Who do you think pays for those chairs you're sitting in? How dare you
Yeah.
insult cops? Do you know who lives in this district?" And she's like, "What is racism? Do you know what race I even am?"
hmm
She was great, and you had her on your show,
Yeah.
and I listened to the
She
whole
had
thing.
she had no notes. And it was kind of better. You listen to her speak and you're like, she's not coming up there with talking points, or like an agenda. She just like has love for her children and the children in her school district. And it was really amazing. It was very inspiring. I was like, oh wow, so few people have balls now. It's when you
No,
see
she
someone
was
who
like,
does, it's yeah.
bring it. And then they were like, she's like, "Who do you think is paying for this?" And the board is like, "These are unpaid positions, ma'am." And she's like, "Who paid for those chairs? Who's paying for the lights in this room? Who paid for the pizza you ate before you got here?" And like, I was like, "Oh my God, I love her. She needs to be running something." And she is getting organized and active now as a result of that sort of, I don't know, it was like grassroots activism in the moment.
Yeah, she had so many people reach out to her, and she was saying, like, just from different countries too, of course, like Cuba and Venezuela, and that's interesting because when I was in DC a couple of times covering the rallies that were going on in November, December, and then also on the 6th, those are the people who were so excited to come up and talk to me were people from Cuba, Venezuela, or their parents were from those countries, and they were so
Hmm.
concerned about the direction the country was heading in.
Or anybody who's from the former Soviet Union. I mean, they'll all those folks are like, what are you doing? Well, you're supposed to be
Wow.
America. But there's a reason we moved here. It does give you a good window into where this is going. And that's actually, as I understand it, kind of what activated your, I don't know if you're political, but it activated your political gene. Like you started thinking about politics in a way you never had before. So explain that. What happened?
Absolutely. I was so just like didn't care about politics. I didn't feel like politics applied to me at all, especially like throughout, college and like in my 20s. I just, again, kind of the way I thought about like news. I was like, oh, it's for boring people. I don't know. I don't really see myself in it. And then starting around, I think probably 2018, I started to really question my political identity. I met Larry Sharp, who ran as a libertarian candidate for governor of New York, and the my whole identity started to sort of crack open. I was like, "What?" Sometimes I would take these online tests, but more through talking to him, I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh wow, I'm not really I can't identify as like a liberal anymore because we see what was happening to the left. It was just getting more and more radicalized. So that was a big step, but mainly it was seeing what was happening to free speech and how it applied to comedy. And I was like, oh no, like this, I have to care about this because this is my future. This is and to see comedians not get pissed off, not get really concerned about what's happening is so strange because it's like, oh wow, you're just focusing on the fact that your team is winning and not the larger picture.
I read this line to my husband Doug last night in my Canadian Debbie packet on you. She wasn't into politics until comedy started coming under assault from cancel culture. Then she realized, and this is in quotes, I needed to fight for the right to tell dick jokes.
Oh my god. Yeah, they're so important. We need to laugh. I mean, I have some smart jokes too in there, but yeah.
No, but I get the point, right? It's like not everybody, even in comedy, is fighting for these rights, which is nuts. You'd think of all industries, the comedians would be standing up saying, what are you saying? Like we're literally the ones who get to say anything, totally irreverent. Our business is being inappropriate, right? But there's surrender even within the comedy ranks to this crazy cancel culture, free speech erosion.
Absolutely. As a comic in LA or New York, there is an obligation to align with the left. And to turn away from that makes you kind of an untouchable in the industry and also a social pariah, like among most other comics. It's just the default setting is to be leftist. And I was like, when I started stand up at 26, like that was me. I was a feminist. I was like hating men. I was like doing all the right things. I was voting Democrat. But my career didn't really wasn't really exploding even then when I was doing all the right things. And I found as I just got older and I found like what are the things that are really making me laugh. And I think at one point I decided to prioritize what I found funny over who liked me.
Mm,
And it was just a lot of little events like, other comedians being extra critical of me. Like I would do an impression of another comedian and then they would just try to cancel me. They'd be like, oh, it was so many little events that kind of came together and it helped me develop a much thicker skin. Um, and I found that once I started caring more about what I found funny, like the fans kind of followed. Like the fans don't care as much I think
right.
about your political leaning. They just want to laugh. And that was the biggest lesson I think over the last 10 years of my doing stand up was letting go of the need to be liked by, Comedy Central industry or whoever's booking Union Hall in Brooklyn or whatever venue or impressing the right people, hanging out. So much of comedy is 10 years ago, for me, I thought it was just hanging out in the right places, getting the right people to like me. And you spend so many hours just kind of hanging out at clubs or hanging out at produced shows. And so much of it feels like high school, especially a lot of these comedy bookers. They feel just like the kids who were not cool in high school. And this is their way to like get back.
Mm.
It's like, oh,
What?
we booked the
But
comedy shows.
isn't it interesting? Like I would think, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that a lot of comedians are probably, this is weird, but a little introverted, like a little, like slightly antisocial. And so that requirement of hanging out at the clubs and making small talk and wooing people into booking you. I don't know. Does that come naturally or is that foreign? Because it's just the comedians I know they're brilliant on stage, but behind the scenes, they're not these huge extroverts.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many comics who are introverts because you're just, and I don't know if it's an age thing, but the older I get, the more I'm like in my head at crowds. I have all this anxiety. I'm like, do these people hate me? Like, do these people think I'm a domestic terrorist because I was, you know, I was doing interviews at January 6th.
Yes, you're
what
an
are they?
insurrectionist.
Oh
We'll
yeah,
get to that.
I've been waiting for the FBI to knock on my door any day now.
Right.
Um, so it's just you worry so much about being liked, and then with the stand-up comedy community, you have either the kind of introverts that you're talking about, like the socially anxious types, or you have like the overly dramatic kind of maybe they're more theater types, or maybe they're more actors, and they like outwardly love and need attention. They're always quote on. They're always performing for everybody around them. It's like they're trying to be hilarious, even for like the guy getting their drink, you know.
It's exhausting.
Um, and the introvert types kind of, you see through that and you're like, oh God, I just don't want to like be around fakeness because it's our
Right.
job to be honest, to be brutally honest. And that's like, sometimes we feel like, am I tired of the cancel culture conversation? But then I'm like, no, I'm not, because comedians are not allowed a first draft of anything anymore. You look at all the arts. Fine artists can do sketches and throw them away. Singers can rehearse for hours in a studio and nobody ever hears it. But with comedy, it's like our first drafts it's on Twitter. It's in our show on stage in the shows. Some clubs tell you not to record, but sometimes people sneak out and record something, and that should be okay. It shouldn't be the end of you. Like if you're a new comic and you have a rough patch and like maybe you are a little bit more racial with your jokes, like that shouldn't be the end of you. You should be allowed to progress and evolve.
Of course.
And
And even, I don't know, it's like nothing should be off limits for comedians. That's one of the reasons why Dave Chappelle is so brilliant. He'll do it all and you feel totally uncomfortable like, "Oh my God, he's making jokes out of school shootings." Right? It's like, and you're like, "But I'm laughing." But if there's some relief in it, like the most horrific things you can think of, somehow he finds a way to make you like feel lighter in the moment. That's a gift. But not everybody feels that way. Okay, so 2 examples. There's Seth Rogen, who told Good Morning Britain that comedians should stop complaining about cancel culture and just accept when a joke has, quote, aged terribly. And then Cat Williams, who is an Emmy Award winning comedian, he does not believe that there's a problem with cancel culture. And here's what he said. Listen.
Some of these things are for the benefit of everything. Nobody likes the speed limit, but it's necessary. Nobody likes the shoulder of the road, but it's there for a reason. Mm-hmm. My point is, people weren't all that extremely funny back when they could say whatever they wanted to say. At the end of the day, there's no cancel culture. Cancellation doesn't have its own culture. I don't know what people we think got canceled that we wish we had back. If all that's going to happen is we have to be more sensitive in the way that we talk, isn't that what we want anyway? If these are the confines that keep you from doing the craft God put you to, then it probably ain't for you.
We need to be more careful in the way that we talk. No. Who are you to tell me that?
It's so easy for Cat Williams. He's been famous and kind of uncancelable for a while. And it's like, I don't want to hear what any household name has to say on cancel culture. It's like, shut up. You've made it. You're good. You have enough money. Same thing with Seth Rogen. I think he's done stand-up once, like maybe once. And you look at all of Seth Rogen's movies and there are so many scenes where he tells so many inappropriate jokes. I feel like sometimes these celebrities, they'll make these statements to come out ahead of it. They're trying to like put up a cushion so that they can't be canceled. They're like, oh, I'm gonna say it first. Like I'm gonna acknowledge it before somebody can come out with one of my clips from years ago. But it's like, you can't listen to anybody who's a household name when it comes to cancel culture, because it's like, it's not fair. It's like, you've made it. And if you slip up, you've got a team of people to help you make it right, to help you, get through it, and you're not going to ruin, all your future sources of income. And I'm kind of, I believe with parts of what Cat Williams said, and I disagree with parts of it too. Like, yeah, okay, you should be able to do your job as a comic. You shouldn't have to like use every cuss word. You shouldn't be, I especially believe with female comics, you shouldn't be super graphic and talking about like your genitals, right? Like you should be able to make people laugh without cursing or being super graphic or being super gross. So I believe with that part, but he compares comedy to like the speed limit. And that's not a fair comparison. It's not the speed limit. Like words aren't as dangerous as a speeding car. Words only have the danger or the value that you give to them. Especially when you have so many Black comics use the N word. They're throwing it away. It's like, well, they can say it, but like if a white person says it, they need to be completely shut down. So
Well, the fact that we're listening to Seth Rogen on anything, right? Like, I mean,
yeah.
people do use his social commentary. They refer to it quite a bit. This is the same guy who, remember this story? Paul Ryan's sons saw him at an event and asked if they could do a photo with him and their dad. And he's like, oh, I saw Paul Ryan, as the dad walked. And I was like, no way, no way. I hate what you're doing to this country. And Paul Ryan, like a very milquetoast Republican.
Yeah.
And that's how hateful this guy is. Seth Rogen hates anybody who's not of the far left. And yet he's the one who's out there like, look, acknowledge when you've crossed a line. Right. Who died and made you the arbiter of that? If you get to decide everything, Stephen Colbert lives, Jimmy
Mhm.
Kimmel lives, right? But probably Joe Rogan has to go away. Anybody who takes risks that, don't align with his politics.
Absolutely. It's like it's a question of, they're making it like they're comparing taste to standards of talent. Like just because it's not your cup of tea doesn't mean that person is not extremely talented. And that's what I hate. Like a joke it should be allowed to live if even one person laughs, And that's what sucks about cancel culture. It gives the offended few the power to dictate content for many. And just because the noisy offended few people are like, oh, we got to shut this down. We got to take this off. We got to take this person out of the running. They can't create content anymore. It's like, well, there could have been tens, hundreds, thousands of people who really were quietly enjoying that comic or that performer.
Course. Now they really won't say it when they see the person come under fire. You've had it happen to you a couple of times. We haven't been officially canceled. But what would you say you've done that is the most controversial thing, like that led to the most blowback?
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. Biggest thing. Let's see. When the pandemic first came out last year, I made Gal Gadot put together a compilation of her and other celebrities, and they were singing Imagine, because I guess I thought
it was absurd.
That would bring all of us together and calm us down.
It's so cringy. It was the biggest cringy thing I saw.
It's exactly what I said before. Like when you're a celebrity, it's like you're kind of lifted. Greatness comes from struggle, but with success and definitely celebrity, you risk losing that struggle, which is why I don't think anybody should listen to anybody like celebrities when it comes to cancel culture. Maybe Ricky Gervais and Adam Carolla, like they've kind of held their, their values when it comes to that.
Yes.
Yeah. But when you're
still fighting for the little guy.
Yes. Yeah. They're still in touch with the little guy and the working person. I think when you cannot risk losing your cushy lifestyle, that becomes more important than speaking the truth and saying what needs to be said. And when we saw with these celebrities, that compilation singing Imagine, we're like, ugh, they're so out of touch. So I was like, why don't I do a little compilation with me and my quote celebrity friends? I don't have celebrity friends. It's just all other comedians. And we all sang a line to Kung Fu Fighting. And I said, you can say Kung Flu or not, because Trump was saying it. It was a trending hashtag, Kung Fu Fighting. It was a thing. So I just put together pretty quickly a compilation of that, put it out. And I think Steven Crowder did a version of Kung Fu Fighting too. It was just, this is what comedians do. A lot of us have maybe the similar idea, and then it's just whoever can put it out quickest. Right. And ended up getting so much blowback. Like the woke Asian community came after me. There were people online who thought that I had written the lyrics to that song. I was like, you people are so dumb. Like this song's been out since the 70s. What are you talking about?
It's a great song.
Yeah. And they thought I was being anti-Asian. I'm like, no, the point is that I'm being kind of like anti-celebrity.
But also, it's like, okay, is it inappropriate? Yeah, but comedy shouldn't be held to those standards. Comedy is politically incorrect. Comedy shouldn't be woke. Comedy is almost designed to offend. If you want to be offended, you could go to any comedy club in the nation and find plenty of reasons to be. Don't look to comedians to make you feel better about our dialogue with one another being as close to the Queen's English and behavior as possible.
Yeah. It's supposed to be silly and goofy. And that's like a kind of I think the biggest problem is like it used to be if you wanted to go and see comedy and you loved comedy, you'd have to go to a building, you have to go to a club, like 80s, 90s, 2000s. That was the way, right? And then once social media, once our amazing cell phones put comedy and content creators in everybody's pocket, well, now everybody gets a say. And if you're not somebody who would like comedy or has a good sense of humor, it's like, well, now you kind of have the power to have a say over comedians, which is great. Everybody should have a say, but it's like people who maybe
you don't have to listen to them.
Exactly. People who don't appreciate comedy.
And you shouldn't.
Exactly. It's like, well, now it's like, it's right here in our faces. It comes up. This person's trending or this TikTok video is trending and you get to see it. And it's like, well, you may not have sought that comedy out, but now it's come to you and you're like, ugh, I don't like it.
Up next, we're going to talk about how Chrissie and a little Tim Dillon were dancing together as little tots in Long Island. You'll love this story. And then we're going to talk about how she wound up voting for Donald Trump. That's in 1 minute. First this. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Credible.com. Homeowners, if you need cash for things like paying down high interest debt, making home improvements, or maybe a college education, you could get the money you need with a cash out refinance through Credible.com. Because of today's soaring home values, the amount of cash you can pull from your home could be higher than ever. And rates are so low that many homeowners who refinance are saving thousands on interest. On Credible.com, you can compare personalized rates from multiple lenders all in one place, making it easy to find the best deal on a refinance. It only takes 3 minutes, and it does not impact your credit score at all. That's good. Rates are near historic lows right now, but could rise at any time. So visit Credible.com today to see what you qualify for. That's CREDIBLE.com. Message from Credible Operations, Inc., NMLS number 1681276, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. Refinance, get cash out, save on interest. Visit Credible.com. So do you think that social media has been a force for good, or like a net good or net bad for comedy?
I think absolutely net good, because it used to be where I used to be like afraid to ever move out of the city. Like I moved in with my boyfriend like 4 years ago, and I thought it was going to be like the end of my career. I was like, I can't move out of Queens. Like I had lived in Brooklyn, I had lived in Williamsburg, I had lived in Astoria, Queens, and I moved up with him up in Westchester. I'm like, I'm done. I have to be close to the city. I was so worried about my career. But and now you fast forward to 2021. Now it's an asset to live away from the city. People are moving out of New York entirely. People moving out of cities, and you can have
so much material in Westchester.
Oh,
I lived there for a little
yeah.
while. It's such an interesting like group of people and way to live. It's sort of white bread, I will say. It's like there's sort of an MO where most of the guys work on Wall Street. Most of the women don't work outside of the home. And as Doug put it, there was where we lived in this one small town. It seemed to be a competition. Every party was a competition to see how much clothes the women could take off, right? Like how little they could cover.
Fun.
Yeah, when arriving at the party, it's like everything's an excuse to wear your, sexy kitten costume or whatever. Like,
oh my God. Yeah. And I was born and raised on Long Island too. And I heard you interview Tim Dillon, and he and I actually went to the same like little kids dance class together when we were like very, very young. It's insane. I wish I had to find these pictures, Megyn. I had to find these pictures, Megyn, because it's like, he was like this little blonde thing, and he was very, very good. He was like very passionate and good at dance. He had so much spunk. I was like, oh, he was like a born performer. And to see that he's grown up to the Tim Dillon we all know today is like blows me away, because he was just like this spunky little turn the beat around. He would be like nailing the steps.
That is spectacular.
And so like, yeah, anyone from Long Island knows, yeah, it's all like cops, teachers, firemen, you know, and there's a lot of funny people who came out of Long Island, you know, like Amy Schumer. Well, she used to be funny, but Dave Attell. I think it was all the chemical testing that happened on Long Island all those years ago. I think we've created a lot of funny people that way.
Something went wrong. Well, so have you? I mean, what's it like for you in Westchester? Because it's, I mean, anthropologically, it must be very interesting.
Well, yeah, it's like I'm renting right now. Like we're kind of like looking to buy a house, but the market's been so crazy the last year. I think it's starting to calm down a little bit because we weren't at a point where we're willing to like overpay tens of thousands of dollars on something, but we're gonna keep looking. And the best part about it is that you can have a thriving comedy career, and you don't have to live in a big city or even a comedy city. It's It's like you just get to know. You have to know social media. You have to know how to clip your whether it's a little bit of time on stage or doing characters, or I mean, that's something I could definitely always spend more time doing. But I think, you know, doing my longer form interview podcast is where I've put most of my energy. And I have another show on Compound Media called The Wet Spot, which is a sex dating relationship like advice panel show.
So who do people call in on that? I did see that. I confess that one I haven't listened to. But are you like a modern day Dr. Ruth on that, or what's the story there?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's what we're trying to be. It's people can call in. It's on Compound Media, and I kind of wanted it to be like how early Howard Stern was, where he would have like comedians and like porn stars in, and sometimes like, you know, sometimes somebody will like flash their boobs or like do something crazy with their body, and it's just like, I mean, sometimes it's
people
like
are Googling it right now.
Yeah, sometimes it can get. Sometimes it's NC-17, but it's mostly just fun, and people call in looking for advice, and or sometimes we'll just talk about like whatever, like sex dating relating topics are kind of
this
like
could be a
trending.
lucrative lane for you, because that girl who hosts Call Her Daddy, that podcast just got paid $20 million a year by Spotify. Yeah, she was with Barstool Sports, her podcast, and Dave Portnoy kind of found her and gave her start, and she had the other co-host with her. Then they had a meltdown, and the other gal left.
Yes, I remember that.
Alex Cooper. Yeah, that's her name. So she kept doing it herself and just signed a deal with Spotify. I guess she's leaving Barstool. 20 million. Wow. So there is money in talking about the sex acts. Stay with it, Chrissie. Don't give up.
What the hell? I have to dye my hair blonde. I need to like work out a little bit more. It's crazy to me, like these people who blow up, and you're like, why?
I know.
I don't get it.
I don't totally get it either, but there's a market for it. And she was just apropos of nothing. There was a bizarre video of this gal circulating last week where she let her dog lick her tongue, and she put it on social media. And it was the weirdest thing that people accused her of bestiality. Our world you know what it is with so her? Weird.
She's like the kind of girl, like girls want to be her and guys like want to bang her. And I think that's, you know, she probably has like a lot of fun sex stories. I listened to a couple episodes, but I was like, I can't do it anymore.
I
can't
say,
get through
I do not want to be her. And not even
okay,
a little.
Good.
Though I applaud her success 100%, but I'd certainly rather my own daughter go a different route. She's only 25 years old though, so she's killing it. She's kind of like Kardashian, making a bunch of money at a very young age by putting something kind of superficial out there. Although sex is part of everybody's life for the most part, and worth discussing. And I thought you did a bit. I'll tee it up for you on certain positions that you addressed, and one of them was your objection to doggy style.
Oh yeah, I hate it.
Why? What's the story?
It's very impersonal. Like I know it feels. I'm not gonna get so graphic. I know it feels good for the guy, but it's like, come on, like it could be anybody there in front of you. It's like it's hard to have a conversation. It's like what are you gonna turn around and be like? Do you even know? Are we going to your mom's for 4th of July? It's like you can't look somebody in the face. It's
Who's
you
having
could
a
both
conversation?
be on any position where you could both be on your phone and the other person wouldn't know is not a good position.
I love it's like, hey, did you see the news about Vladimir Putin? Who's talking in that moment? Yeah. You don't have to be face to face.
Hey, watch where you're putting that. Yeah, exactly. That's corny. But like,
so you have an alternative. What's the alternative?
The alternative is, you could look somebody in the eye, old fashioned missionary, but I think the future is picking an animal that is cuter, that's a little bit more respectable. I think maybe we should have sex like a cat, kitty style. And I don't know if you've ever tried this, Megyn. If not, you should. This is what you should do tonight, kitty style. It's I'll go through it really quickly. It's where you and your guy are like having sex, everything's going great, but then all of a sudden one of you just runs away suddenly. And that's it. You saw something more interesting.
I'm going to give it a try.
Ta-da! Give it a try. Give it a try. And getting back to your other point when you're talking about like my sort of process of being anti-woke and finding myself, a big part of that was getting a show on Compound Media because it's Anthony Cumia's network, and he was already, I guess, kind of already kind of a polarizing figure. Some people love, a lot of people love him, some people hate him. He's kind of more on the right with his politics. So unfortunately, like, you get kind of stereotyped. Like, as soon as I got a show on Compound Media, people are like, oh, you're far right. And it's so funny, like, because of that default I said earlier, is that default is to be on the left in comedy. A comic who voted for Trump and is like vocal about voting for Trump is seen as, quote, more political than a comic who voted for Biden or who is like out about Biden or Obama or whatever. And just the same thing. It's such BS. And if you go to a Trump rally, you're seen as like radical and political. But if you go to a BLM rally and you light something on fire, it's like,
you're a good person.
You're a good person, and that's normal. So once I got the show on Compound Media, it was pretty crazy because before I got that show, I spent 6 years. I hosted a show at the Stonewall Inn, which is a New York City LGBT landmark. It was the site of the Stonewall riots in 1969, like, very important spot. I ran a show there, put so much of my own money into advertising. I would constantly be scouting like up and coming LGBT talent. I would get heavy hitters from the cellar to come in, and it was a great show, great lineup. So I did that for 6 years. So I would have certain people kissing my ass, being nice to me. And as soon as I stopped doing that show and started doing Compound Media, it's like, you see what people think of you right away, and you see how selfish so many comedians are. Like, they're ultimately just out for themselves, and I had a very good friend call me like a conservative mouthpiece. And you just have to step back and be like, oh, wow, this is okay. People show you who they are. And I started covering the rallies. First I went in November, then I went December, and then I was there on the 6th. The Trump rallies. Because I was like, I know the media is not being honest and not showing us. And I was very curious. I'm like, you know what? Let me meet these MAGA people. Let me see if they're all like redneck hillbillies, morons, like the media is telling us that they are. And I get there, and I was so blown away. It was the most diverse people, families, all colors, all ethnicities. And like I said before, the people who were so excited to come up to me and do little interviews were the people from or whose parents were from Cuba or Venezuela. And just so the passion and love for this country,
salt of the earth
blew me away.
It doesn't tend to be the elite media, whatever crowd with the glasses at the end of their noses. And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah,
so
it was. I learned
so you start going
much.
to the rallies, and then people start looking at you like you're Donald Trump Jr. But you voted for Trump. I think you might be the only person in America who voted for Jill Stein in 2016 and Trump in 2020. What happened? But was that because of the political awakening and the cancel culture and all that stuff? Because I think a lot of us have gone through that.
I think 2016, I was like halfway out. I was like a little chick starting to crack out of an egg. I was like not fully on board with Trump, didn't understand him, didn't appreciate him yet. But I knew that Hillary Clinton was not the answer. And I was like starting to break out of like my sort of feminist mold there. So I was like, I was not getting a good feeling from Hillary. I had no idea like how evil and horrible she is like I do now. But I just was like, yeah, I'm not sold on either one. So, I went with Jill Stein. Not a great choice, but I made it. I got here eventually. And so I didn't get any real blowback from going to the November rally or December. But with January, I went because I was like, let me just see if they cover it January 6th the way they covered November and December. They would do, the mainstream media would do like an early morning flyover, like 6 a.m. before anybody really assembled. Like, oh, look, there's 40 people here. This is a non-event. So I was really curious to see how they would cover it. And I remember I just, again, I'm doing interviews. I'm just sort of man on the street, had my camera out. It was like so cold. And it just bothers me because I was there, and anybody who was there on the 6th is like blown away with how like inaccurate the media coverage is. It's like, at this point, it's like, I don't want to listen to anybody's thoughts on the 6th unless they were like there, like physically there, because it just was not a big deal. Like I have this tweet. Oh, it was after, I forget his name. This guy like donated his suit to the Smithsonian, the suit that he wore on January 6th. And I had this tweet where I was like, wow, I think there was more carnage at my first period, which I know is a horrible, but I was making
Andy
a point.
Kim.
Yeah. Yes. Andy, relax.
As a symbol of hope and resilience and a story of light on one of the darkest days in our democracy. He donated it to the Smithsonian because he'd been wearing it in a photo of him cleaning up the Capitol after the fact. And, now the Smithsonian has apparently accepted it. So, yes. Okay. So I see your point about the carnage.
Yeah. I mean, it's horrible. Like Ashley Babbitt was murdered. Should not have happened. But like for a group of people who could have come fully armed to the Capitol, they didn't. It was extremely peaceful and chill. And most of us didn't even know what was happening until like hours later, until like 4 or 5 o'clock when we were leaving. And I remember on my way when we were walking to the Capitol, because it was nothing Trump ever said. It wasn't like, and charge. It wasn't like a scene at a Braveheart where he was like telling us what to do.
Dying in your bed.
Yeah.
Years from now.
There was a schedule of events like there was with every rally. A little graphic circulates before you go there. Like, okay, this night is this person speaking here, and tomorrow it's, it was planned. So I remember the night before, it was like there were speakers happening in one area. And then the morning of, it was like, okay, we're all going to meet. What was it called? The ellipsis or something. Someone was, we had been out there since like 8 a.m. and then Trump was supposed to speak at 11. He didn't start speaking till 12. So all of us were getting cold and we're like, all right, we can't really stay and hear this whole speech. So the next march point, the next pre-planned event was like, okay, we're all going to march to the Capitol. It was nothing like him going, charge. It was just, that was the next place we were supposed to go to. And I remember I tweeted out just a little bit of video, and it was me saying like, all right, marching to the Capitol or something like that. And one of these New York City like woke comedy bookers took it, retweeted it with a comment saying like, I don't know what comics in LA are doing, but here in New York, they're storming the Capitol. And this was a woman like I don't work with, I'm not friends with. It's like they use it to virtue signal. It's like, you don't even know what was going on. Like, you don't even know that it was like mostly the most chill thing ever. It was like people had blankets and picnics and families and hilarious costumes.
But a faction turned, and there's no question the media represented this as so much worse than it actually was. But we've all seen the video of people like screaming in the face of cops, being totally disparaging, and defecating on the floor of the U.S. Capitol.
That's crazy.
Lawmakers were understandably afraid. Not like AOC, I need therapy for the rest of my life, afraid. But I could understand it, and I didn't like seeing it at all. That's our Capitol. Get the hell out of there. Have some respect. Don't threaten the cops. Screw you. The MAGA crowd is supposed to be pro-cop. And you don't get in their faces and yell at them and say that, all this shitty stuff, which I heard, with my own ears.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't see any of that. Yeah.
That doesn't mean that's what the entire crowd was there for, intended to do. So they got tarred by the actions of like some losers who went a different way. And then the media did what it does, which is any bad behavior gets attributed to the entire group of Trump supporters, not just on the Capitol, but in the country. Right. Remember, after that, it was like, you're a MAGA supporter, you're a Trump supporter, you're on the banned list. It wasn't just like, did you storm the Capitol? It was like, if you voted for Trump, you're banned. You're not getting book deals. You're not getting anything.
It took less and less. It's like, oh, do you own cargo shorts? Well, you're on the list now. It's like, do you have an American flag in your car?
Is that a tell? Cargo shorts? The flag, I know, but cargo, no.
Yeah. It takes less and less. Yeah, of course it was horrible. Like, a few people really did like ruin the event for everybody else. And there is footage of like MAGA and Trump supporters like trying to stop people from getting in
Yep.
cops' faces, trying to like
I've seen that too.
I had this friend who was another independent journalist. He said that he saw somebody like passing up a sledgehammer, and then somebody else took that and gave it to a cop because they were like actively trying to stop destruction. So yeah, I'm not going to say like nothing happened, but
it wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't the way people
no.
have portrayed it. Like, and I understand the that's based in part on just the overall messaging from Team Trump at the time, which was, I didn't lose. We have to fight. Mike Pence should take it back. And, subverting the democratic process with, stuff that was unsupported in Trump. So like Mike Pence did not have the authority to hand him the election, and he misled people. So they're tying together the political rhetoric with what we saw, with people storming. And it misses, of course, like all these news stories, any nuance. Like, what about the people who weren't there at all for that? And we've talked to folks who were there as well on this show. But here's what I wanted to get your reaction to. Matthew Dowd, who is one of the biggest losers on Twitter, and that's saying something. He used to work for George W. Bush. Wow, has his life changed? Okay, whatever you think of George W. Bush, the reason I will always have a soft spot in my heart for him is him right after 9/11 and what a strong leader he was and how amazing he was. We can talk about Iraq and all that. I get it. But in those days after 9/11, I think most of us fell in love with him. And Matthew Dowd worked for him. Now Matthew Dowd has gone on to be a political commentator at ABC News. No longer. He was running their politics unit. No longer. And he's just gone far left. He's on with Joy Reid all the time. He's like a Nicole Wallace type. And here he was just the other day on with Joy Reid talking about the impact of the Capitol riot. Listen to him.
To me, though there was less loss of life on January 6th, January 6th was worse than 9/11 because it's continued to rip our country apart and give permission for people to pursue autocratic means. And so I think we're at a much worse place than we've been. And as I've said, I think to you before, I think we're in the most perilous point in time since 1861 in the advent of the Civil War.
I do too.
Well, you're a couple of idiots.
What a moron.
Can you believe that?
They're intimidated and so threatened that like the American people are taking back their voice and like being heard. And I think they're just upset, like, oh, all the censorship. But yeah, it's still not enough. People are still gonna let their voices be heard.
Was worse than 9/11.
Wow.
3,000 people died. Firefighters, cops, children who were on those planes that got turned into bombs, into missiles, who must have been terrified for their lives as they went into those buildings. Fuck you, Matthew Dowd.
Seriously.
Honestly,
fuck you. I'm saying it too.
It's infuriating. And Joy Reid too. It's infuriating. It's so disrespectful to the Americans who lost their lives, who were forced to jump from the 90th floor. Having to choose between being burned to death by jet fuel and jumping to their deaths. It makes me so angry. That kind of talk, fine, right? Like somehow he's considered a patriotic American. I just find
it's like, relax.
It's an insight. It's an insight in like who's running media today, right?
So out of touch. It's so out of touch. It's like, you don't have crews and crews of people for like weeks and months looking through the rubble of the Capitol building, looking for bodies. It's like to compare it to that is so out of touch.
Yes, it's almost like the Holocaust. Just don't compare things to it. Just some events are so uniquely awful. You just don't compare to them, and I just feel like right now you look back at like the men and women who have served our country, who went over to Afghanistan, who went over to Iraq, who sacrificed blood and treasure to fight those wars. And all of them have to look at this moron and Joy Reid, the other moron, sit on television and say, oh no, as much as I didn't like the crapping on the floor of the Capitol, to listen to that guy say somehow that was worse because it divided us. Guess what? That wasn't the event that divided us. That wasn't the event. It's been events going back for years now, including very much during the Obama presidency. And certainly the Iraq war was divisive and so on, but there's no accountability by this guy for his role or the role of the media in any of it. It's just MAGA, right?
Yeah. And a lot of these people in media, they're like just drunk with power. It's like they know that there are so many brainwash people who are going to be glued to their TV, and whatever they hear will be what they repeat to people. And I would say even to combine all the BLM, you know, like demonstrations and the carnage from that, like even all that together is not anywhere close to comparing it to 9/11. So to compare just the 6th
Mhm.
to it is really insane.
And by the way, like when he talks about it's given people permission to pursue autocratic means, it was Barack Obama who took out his pen and his phone and started issuing edicts that he had no business issuing, that he himself said he couldn't issue before he then went on to issue them, for example,
Hmm.
on immigration. And, you can go back and check the record on Barack Obama's executive actions that went beyond anything we'd seen long before Donald Trump took office. And so, like, when he talks about autocratic means, by the way, Trump then left office, right? A couple weeks after this. Joe Biden took over. So, who is he talking about? What are the autocratic
Yeah.
means he's talking about? Because Trump's push to overturn the election failed. It failed thanks to the courts, thanks to what happened on January 6th with the lawmakers that day. So, I'm not sure exactly what he's objecting to, but the fact that these people get a platform and talk about this so irresponsibly infuriates me. Okay, so
Yeah.
moving on from your insurrectionist past.
Oh, right. And then, so of course, like the folks, they don't realize what was going on, why people were there. They just, I don't know if they're just dumb, or like in the early days, they just figured anybody who's in DC on that day is a horrible person. Right. They think I was there to shit on Pelosi's desk. It's like, no, there are
Right.
people there just covering the event, like from a kind of independent media standpoint. But then like the rumors fled, and I guess I had a campaign going of people reaching out to my Facebook friends. I'm like, who even uses Facebook anymore? But I had folks reaching out to my Facebook friends saying, "Oh, I'm just letting you know you're Facebook friends with Chrissie Mayr. You should probably unfriend her because she was at the Capitol on the 6th." Like,
Oh, God.
it's so sad. Like people spending their time trying to
Has
get.
it settled down at all since then? Because I feel like tempers were so hot right then in the aftermath of the election and Trump's claims and all that. I don't know. It was like, no Trump will ever be seen in public or listened to ever again after this. And now I think people are realizing wrong. So has that settled at all in your own life since then?
It has settled down, and the friends that I've lost, it burns at first, but then you're like, oh, anybody who's going to unfriend you over this, even without a conversation or a discussion, is not a real friend and not somebody who was going to be there for you anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just been like a lot of life lessons, and the people I've met, the friends I've made, and the kind of, I guess, other influencers or other independent journalists I've met in the last year or 6 months. I've gained far more than I've lost. And when we talk about
Good.
like independent and new media, it's like I'm friends with a lot of these guys that are kind of on the forefront, that are getting more views than CNN. It's very exciting to know and
Hmm.
associate and be friends with these people. And I learned so much from them.
Are there secret Trump fans or secret Republicans, secret conservatives, or just not even any of that? Like I wouldn't call myself any of those things really. I'm just my politics are generally center right, but I'm on the side of reason and I'm totally opposed to cancel culture and wokesters. So are there people like that in comedy who are kind of underground who you're discovering?
Oh, absolutely. There are people, my DMs are full of comics who are like kind of afraid to come out. And I think that's like, I'm so outspoken about these topics that they feel comfortable like coming to me
Yeah.
and be like, "Oh, is this really true?" Like I just did an interview with a comic who finally he was very woke and on the left for a long time, and he's like, I had enough. Like I have these agents telling me that, sorry, it's a hard time for white guys,
Ugh.
just so blatantly in his face, and getting kicked off of podcasts run by lesbians because they're not allowing straight white men on anymore, just like blatant discrimination. And he's like, yeah, I'm done. I think I'm done. And he's like, I was raised by gay guys, but I'm like, I'm done. I'm not going to even pride parades anymore, because it's like I have to focus on me and the people who are supporting me and want me to thrive. And that is not anybody on the left.
We
But
had we
yes, so
had
there.
Ryan Long on the show. You know him.
Oh
He's
yeah,
so
I love
funny.
Ryan. Yeah.
And he's Canadian and he was talking about how and he was killing it, but he was told repeatedly, I think it was by Canadian Broadcasting, I'm obviously you're not getting a show because you're a white man. There's no so it's he's like, oh, okay, right. So That's what they're up against. It's not just leveling the playing field. It's you nothing. No, you'll be getting nothing because of the color of your skin and your male parts.
Yeah. And you can tell like people on the left are scared. And that's why it's like, oh, if you're a white person who's obsessed with diversity, well, then you can stay. So people know that and they go, okay, well, I got to be the white person who's championing diversity at every turn. And then I can be the white person who gets to stay and gets to keep my job or whatever. It's really
Well,
sad.
but
I
isn't
think
it
it's out of
interesting?
fear.
Like I just had Jason Whitlock on the show. We were talking about the Rachel Nichols thing on ESPN. You know, she's this broadcaster who was like, yes, diversity, equity, inclusion, wokester. And then it turned out that they wanted to give a Black reporter her job hosting the NBA finals. And she was caught on tape saying, not my job. Don't come for me. Yes, I'm pro diversity. Find someplace else to do it. It's like,
of course. Not over here. That's great. I love when that happens. Yeah, but my DMs are full of people who are kind of in the closet about it, and I just, time will tell, and as they kind of get kicked out of the woke boat, and it's never anybody in the center or on the right who is kicking anybody out. It's like I don't understand. And I listened to that episode with Ryan Long, and he said, like, that's how you can tell who's in charge of the culture. Like, look at the people who are kicking folks out. I don't think that's true. I think the fans are the only thing that matters, and focus on finding whatever you think is funny. And that was the biggest, the sense of freedom I got when I realized, like, it's all about the fans. It's all about, like, just being true to yourself, put out there what you find funny, and people will gravitate and find you. And don't worry about impressing anybody else or fitting into any group.
Up next, Chrissie's fight with another famous Chrissie Teigen. How that came about and how it led to people wondering whether Chrissie Mayr is involved in QAnon. So we'll talk about that. And then we will get into Greta Thunberg and Chrissie's take on her. Stay tuned. But first, I want to bring you a feature we have here on the MK Show called Sound Up. And that's where we play you a soundbite that we think you need to hear. In the news this week is Michael Avenatti. Remember him? They refer to him as celebrity lawyer. Challenge. Well, he's going to prison. He was sentenced this past Thursday to 30 months in prison. He represented Stormy Daniels. You remember he became a darling of the media because she was going after Trump, and he was saying he was going to bring Trump down. And then his star got elevated, and he was just given a complete pass by everyone in the media. Almost everyone, as we'll get to in a second. Now he's going to prison. He, in February of 2020, was convicted on 3 counts of threatening. It's basically extortion. He threatened to publicly accuse Nike of illicitly paying amateur basketball players. And Nike realized that it was being extorted. He was demanding millions of dollars. He wanted that Nike to pay his client, a youth basketball coach, $1.5 million, to pay Avenatti and another lawyer $12 million, and guarantee another $15 and $25 million in payments for some sort of an investigation. Anyway, Nike goes to the FBI to say, creepy porn lawyer is extorting us, and they got him dead to rights. And so he was found guilty in February 2020, and when sentencing him, the judge, U.S. District Court Judge Paul Gardeffi, said, and I quote, Mr. Avenatti's conduct was outrageous. He had become drunk on the power of his platform, or what he perceived his platform to be. Avenatti stood there crying, choking up. Oh, they always cry when it's their neck on the line. Pausing in his remarks and saying something to the effect of, Twitter and TV mean nothing, Your Honor. I betrayed my own values, my friends, my family, myself. I and I alone have destroyed my career, my relationships, my life. I feel no sympathy for him. He still faces trials on two additional criminal indictments. One over allegations that he defrauded Stormy Daniels, who fired him, remember? And another for allegedly defrauding other clients of his law firm. Lovely guy. Lovely. Well, anyway, the reason we're bringing this to you is because it's another example of the disgusting fawning media. When anybody says anything that's anti-Trump or anti-Republican, frankly, he was given a pass on what appeared to be troubled allegations that Stormy Daniels was making against Trump, right? Everybody put him on just to say, oh, Trump did it. How bad is he? He's awful. Well, when I was on NBC, I put on Trump's lawyer, who I beat up. It was fun. I liked the guy, actually, but I beat him up pretty well. And then I put on Avenatti, and I beat that guy up too. And I'll get to that in one second. Washington Free Beacon does this great montage of the fawning media when it came to this guy, this now convicted criminal. Listen.
He's Donald Trump's worst nightmare. Michael Avenatti.
Joining us once again is Michael Avenatti.
Let's bring in Michael Avenatti.
Michael Avenatti. Michael Avenatti.
Michael Avenatti, thank you very much.
He's out there saving the country.
Don Meacham says he may be the savior of the republic.
You are something of a folk hero now.
I owe Michael Avenatti an apology. I've been saying enough already, Michael. I've seen you everywhere. What do you have left to say? I was wrong, brother. You have a lot to say. I am just dying to hear what you think.
These people all like you.
And the only person right here Donald Trump fears more than Robert Miller.
We think you guys are the tip of the spear that's going to take down Donald Trump.
Michael Avenatti's a beast.
Okay, that's true.
And
he's a beast.
He's a beast.
I hand it to her, and I hand it to Michael Avenatti.
But he has a bigger calling here. That being a lawyer is minimal compared to what he's doing.
No one has talked tougher directly to Donald Trump on TV than Michael Avenatti. And Donald Trump is afraid to mention his name.
That's fascinating.
Donald Trump is terrified of Michael Avenatti.
He gives Trump a run for his money more than anybody else, Michael Avenatti.
An existential threat to the Trump presidency.
The Democrats could learn something for you. You are messing with Trump a lot more than they are.
He has no doubt created sheer panic in Donald Trump's very fragile mind.
Michael Avenatti is laying down the law as guest co-host. And is he really thinking about running for president?
One reason why I'm taking you seriously as a contender is because of your presence on cable news.
You look at the field of Democrats right now, and Avenatti's the one who stands out.
If they decide they value a fighter most, people would be foolish to underestimate Michael Avenatti.
I have always said that they need a fighter.
Look, I mean, we're going to continue to use the media. I think we've used it with great success.
All of my sexual fantasies involve handcuffs.
And now there's a lot of sort of look at the media. They're disgusting. People like Brian Stelter, as you heard, saying, oh, you're going to run for office. You're going to be the next president. Over on NBC, just for the record, because a lot of people are like, oh, she went to NBC because she wanted to let her liberal freak flag fly. Absolutely not. If you ever watch me on NBC, I did the news the same way as I did it on Fox. That's been something that always stuck in my craw. People thought I changed. No, I didn't. I just went softer. But when it came to my politics coverage, I was exactly the same as I'd always been. And this was a good example of it. And here is a sample for you of his interview on my show.
So why hasn't she returned the money?
We offered to return the money 2 weeks ago.
I know, but she didn't.
No, but we offered to return the money.
So just do it.
We may do that.
Why wouldn't she? Why would Stormy Daniels be leading the charge on whether that payment violated the election law?
Because, I mean, this is the honest to God truth. This is a principled woman at this point. She wants the truth. She wants the truth.
Now they're laughing at you.
No.
She wanted the dough, and now she wants to keep the dough while violating the agreement,
no, she doesn't want
which, whether you like Michael Cohen or Donald Trump or not, doesn't seem fair to them.
Megyn, she doesn't want to keep the dough. We've offered to return the dough.
What's stopping you?
It was 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago.
It's very simple. You take out the piece of paper and you write $130,000, and then you mail it.
And then he attacked me later because I went after his stupid client, Julie Swetnick, who he then represented against Brett Kavanaugh. Remember that? She's the one who was completely making up her allegations about seeing Brett Kavanaugh go into rape rooms. The woman was totally not credible. And I did a long segment pointing out why. All her past problems, she'd been in trouble in prior jobs for lying. And I mean, I went on and on and on and talked about how her claims had fallen apart on national television. I mean, you look at this woman's history, she misled for a living. I mean, she just had systemic problems in her past. And I went after her and I went after Avenatti, and he attacked me and I attacked him right back. And there it went, right? So if you're paying attention, his problems were staring you in the face, but most of the media wasn't. And it's just yet another example of how you cannot trust these people, the media, when the commentator, the person they're promoting, is saying anything that would reflect poorly on President Trump, or in today's day and age, the MAGA crowd in general, or even it's expanded to the non-woke, the Republican crowd, what have you. You know that by now to maintain your healthy dose of skepticism. But this is just the latest example, and one I'm sure Avenatti will try to wrap around him for some sort of comfort of the golden days in his career as he spends time in cell block 14. And that is what we call sound up. Now back to Chrissie in 1 minute. We got a lot of comments on the Apple reviews about the X Chair ads. People enjoy them. I enjoy them too. It's becoming a thing. I'm glad to know you guys are listening. I confess to you, I'm not sitting in the X chair right now because I'm in New Jersey for the summer. We couldn't get the X chair here. It's just kind of large and kind of a PIA to stick into the car. And I miss it. I miss my Elemax temperature regulation that takes my seating comfort to a whole new level. It's got cooling, it's got heat, it's got massage for my lower back. The X chair has got a patented dynamic variable lumbar support that was already best in class with incredible responsive low back support. And now, thanks to Elemax, the comfort's guaranteed. You will not believe the difference of this chair until you feel it for yourself. Imagine regulating your body temperature and getting massage therapy while you are working. What chair are you sitting in right now? It's subpar, isn't it? Now that I'm calling your attention to it, you're like, why am I not dealing with the X chair that's at the forefront of home and office seating? Right? You got to check it out. I'm telling you, you won't be sorry. The air conditioning in your home or office cranked up too high will just set your Elemax to heating. Warm up. Soothe your tired muscles. If you're feeling stressed from too many Zoom calls, stresses Jeffrey Toobin? No. Well, this is the massage chair for you, for sure. Could get you in less trouble than what he did. Just turn on Elemax Massage Therapy and relax. There's never been a better time to ditch your old no-name office chair and boost your productivity by treating yourself to the joys of X-Chair. X-Chair is on sale right now for $100 off. Just go to XChairMK now. That's the letter X, chair, the letter MK.com. Or you can just call 1-844-4XChair. X-Chair's got a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. Go to XChairMK.com now and use the code XWheels for free X-Wheel blade casters. XChairMK.com. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about was another Chrissie Teigen. There's been this ongoing debate, I think in a lot of conservative circles, and we've certainly had it on this show, about her kind of cancellation. I mean, she's married to John Legend. She's got plenty of success and money and so on. Chrissie Teigen's going to be 100% fine. But she lost a couple of endorsement situations with, I think Target and so on, because it came out that she's an internet troll bully of young women going through hard times. This is her thing. The woman who wanted to cancel everybody, turns out, is a massive, mean bully. And she can't wiggle out of it. She denied the most recent accusation by some guy who worked with her on Project Runway. She said he faked her DMs, but all the others she admits. Wow. That's there's really no dispute. And there's been a debate about whether the right should be pushing to cancel people, because it was really Candace Owens who took aim at her and outed her and sort of stayed on it. And Nicole Arbor, who's also very funny, she went on Candace's show and they had a debate. Nicole's like, we shouldn't become what we loathe, cancelers. And Candace was like, she kind of used the line from the left, which is, this isn't about cancel culture. It's about accountability culture. That's what the left says every time they cancel somebody. The way I saw it was, I don't like this. I don't like cancel culture, but we're losing this battle by just sitting back saying, stop doing that. And the only way we're going to win is if we start getting our hands dirty and saying, it's on. Okay, we don't want to live like this, but if you're going to force us to, let's go. We'll play by your rules. Your people are going to go too.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. In a perfect world, no, it shouldn't come to this. But Chrissie Teigen, she's so disgusting. And she just has gotten so many chances over the years. People were trying to let this bullying problem be known for years now. And it took several attempts, but finally it stuck. And it stuck. Oh my God, I'm losing it. I need coffee.
Did you also have a big martini last night?
Yeah, every night. Ooh. And it just took so many attempts. And that's the thing is she has a PR team. She's got so many people helping her. Anytime some bad press would come out about her, and this is what I've learned about celebrities, it's they never deny or refute the claims. They just create new news to put on top of it to push down the bad stuff they don't like in the search results.
Very Trumpy. That's very Trumpy.
Yeah. And I just I don't know. I don't think her miscarriage was real. I think she's done a lot of stuff.
What? Stop it.
I don't know.
Well, I will say I saw you get blowback you had sent out a tweet kind of taking issue with her sending out the grieving photograph of her in the hospital bed when she found out she miscarried.
Yeah, that's what's
I have
so
to say,
suspect.
it made me uncomfortable. I felt uncomfortable when I saw the photo. I understand, I've had a miscarriage too, although unlike Chrissie Teigen, I didn't make it public. And I certainly wouldn't have ever dreamed of sending out a photograph of me crying in the moment. I don't know. It was celebrated, made
Yeah.
me uncomfortable.
That's the part of which makes it suspect. Like if that's what really most people, and my mom had 2 miscarriages, so it's like most people, they just kind of grieve. It's one thing if that happens to you and a month later you come out with like a Vanity Fair spread and you're talking about it, like that makes more sense. But to like have it and then you're bringing your photographer with you, or you're calling them in right away. Come on, you got to capture this. It's like, make sure you get this tear rolling down my cheek. Oh, you didn't get it? Let's put it back with an eyedropper. Like, I just think it's too much. And everything about her image is so carefully constructed. And, every time she goes to the bathroom, she puts out a press release. So, and she's somebody who was all about canceling and going after people. It just, nobody, she was not under those same standards.
She wants sympathy, right? Obviously you send that out because you want people to, and people are like, oh, she's shining a light on miscarriage. It's like, well, miscarriage isn't something you can't talk about. What do you mean? It's just, it tends to be something that's very private that women go through with their husbands or their boyfriends. And no, most of us would never dream of just sharing it with the world. It's not for public consumption, but okay, fine. I mean, I thought Megyn McCain did a long article on it and Meghan Markle did a long, I don't know. To me, those two, it's like, you do you, but for me, I would never do that. But Chrissie does everything online. And so she puts out this image of her, like the grieving mom and the wonderful supportive wife. And behind the scenes, she's sticking knives in young women who are going through real struggles, like that Courtney Stodden did.
Exactly.
Who was married to a much older man and wound up realizing she was non-binary. I can't remember but she goes by they now. Anyway, she's a hypocrite.
Oh yeah. But people came out with all these screenshots over the years of her just being like, yeah, kill yourself. Like, not even in a funny way. And I think over the years, she's tried to maybe tell people, oh, she was being funny. It's like, Chrissie, you're not a comedian. These aren't jokes. They're not even joke premises. Like, no, you're just a cruel individual and you're trying to backpedal. That's why I think that it makes sense for why she, deleted like thousands and thousands of tweets last summer. It's because she had a lot of dirty laundry to hide, or dirty tweets.
Well, she didn't get them all. She didn't get them all.
No.
Can I ask you about the Q thing?
Oh yeah, sure. Like,
okay, because you had sent out a tweet kind of directed at Chrissy Teigen, and I think you ended it with like #Q. And then everybody said you were part of QAnon. So what was that about?
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, this was when I used this website called Social Blade, and I was using it mostly to kind of like check on other comedians to see, because it shows you like Twitter analytics or like any other social media too. So I would use it to see like, ooh, who has bought followers? Because you can see like a sharp spike, and you can tell by looking at the charts, like who has bought followers or who has deleted. It is so fascinating, Megyn. Like, I highly recommend it, because like
what's it called again?
Social Blade.
Okay, keep going.
And I would use it to just to see like, oh, what comics have kind of been like inflated by like, whatever, Comedy Central or whoever, like they've just been propped up. They've had followers bought for them, or they bought. And then I would also see like who's deleted a bunch of tweets. Like, usually before somebody goes on like an SNL, there's like a period before where you see a lot of tweets being deleted. And you can go, okay, this is interesting. They deleted a whole slew of tweets before doing this show or getting this special. So I had checked Chrissy Teigen's, because I was like, yes, she's a little suspect. I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going on with her. Like, I feel like maybe she's deleted some tweets, because people would show screenshots like with all this before, she had accountability for any of this bullying. And then I checked her, and it showed that she had like very recently deleted 28,000 tweets. And I was like, that's significant. That's a
lot.
That was like, maybe
did she tweet?
Yeah, that was like maybe a third or a fourth of her total tweets ever. And she's like this darling of Twitter. She's like the self-proclaimed mayor of Twitter. I'm like, nobody deletes that many tweets unless they're trying to hide something. So I was like, this is very curious. So I just tweeted out like, oh, some celebrities have been very busy since Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. Like, Chrissy Teigen, why did you? Because there had been rumors of her like association, with Epstein and being on like the flight logs. And I was like, okay, it's hearsay. And so I was like, okay, Christy, like, why did you delete all these tweets? So then I just did a bunch of trending hashtags just to see like if I could poke poke the nest a little bit. Like, I don't know, just because I thought it was interesting because I'm like, that's a ton of tweets. And I couldn't believe it because I was recording a podcast. And then when I was done, my boyfriend was like, she responded. I was like, what? Because I was like, little old unverified me. How did she even see it, And sure enough, she responded. She was like, no, I didn't delete 28,000. I deleted 60,000 tweets because of people like you. Da, da, da. Like, she was very triggered by what I said. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I deleted these tweets because I'm afraid for my family. And now fast forward to, July 2021, we see she deleted them because she didn't want to get, she didn't get in trouble for all this bullying. And so, of course, like, I didn't realize there were so many people who had been keeping tabs on Chrissy Teigen through the years. And they had all these screenshots of these horrible tweets, like creepy tweets where she was like, oh, yeah, I'm watching these like little girls on Toddlers and Tiaras. Like, I like watching them do the splits or whatever these tweets were. Like, you can still find them. They're still out there. Yes. I think this was back in like 2011, 2012, probably when she thought like nobody was watching her Twitter before she really blew up.
I should note that she denies that she knew Jeffrey Epstein at all, and that apparently there's zero evidence that she ever had any actual connection to him or was ever on the plane and all that. But the Toddlers and Tiaras tweet, I'm just looking back at the history now. She said, this is per the Daily Mail in 2020. I actually deleted 60,000 tweets because I cannot effing stand you idiots anymore, and I'm worried for my family. Finding me talking about Toddlers and Tiaras in 2013 and thinking you're some sort of effing operative. So she's obviously trying to defend some of those tweets about, her comments on the girls. Yeah, so I see now what went on. So people found her weird tweets and kind of piled on, and then she deleted a bunch of tweets, and then people felt it was even more strange, and then you got sort of under the target because you tweeted out #SaveTheChildren, #Q. So you're not part of QAnon. That was trolling, basically.
No, and also because like I am very passionate. Like, Twitter has such a huge like child porn problem, so that's like something that really affects me too. That I care deeply about. I've talked to Eliza Blue, who is she helps victims of sex and human trafficking, and so I think because that was like coming out on Twitter, I was like, oh, this is also something I have a lot of feelings about. Like, I just don't think you should be at all, even a little bit creepy when it comes to kids. Yeah. And that's a perfect way to discredit somebody, is being like, oh, they're with QAnon. If somebody voted for Trump and they're kind of trying to poke the status quo, an easy thing to say is like, oh, they're with Q. That's a quick way to discredit somebody, I think. And I think that's why that got thrown at me a lot.
I confess I don't totally understand Q. I really don't.
I don't either.
I was shocked at a dinner party when my friend said she was like into it, and I was like, no, I had been ripping on it, to be honest, and then she was like, a lot of smart people are into it, and I was like, what do you mean? And then it became clear she was one of them, and I was like, oh, I don't know. There's a lot of crazy shit that comes out of Q for sure. So something you said earlier I wanted to pick up on. You said something like my feminist mold, and talked about how you used to be a liberal Democrat, and I wondered if you think other than like folks who grow up in Texas or I don't know, the real deep South, I feel like almost every woman I know, except for, like a small collection, maybe very religious, very Christian people, they're molded. They go after young girls and sort of insist that they be liberal Democrats. Like, the whole system is set up to make you a liberal Democrat, to reward thinking that's liberal Democrat. Even before now with the K through 12 nonsense in schools, it's just been set up this way for a long time. And girls are pleasers. And I think a lot of folks wind up thinking they're a liberal Democrat, even though they might not be. It's just pushed on them by society.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, for me, it kind of started in college, like this idea, like, well, your parents are spending all this money for you to have this college education. So, you have to go get a job. Like, you can't, like, the idea that you would maybe, and a lot of girls like, would meet their husbands in college and they ultimately wouldn't work. And that was just so looked down upon, like that you were somehow less smart, or, that you were just basically like wasting your parents' money if you decided to just being a mom was like the fate worse than death. Like, really? Like that's the best you can do?
Right.
Reproduce?
Like you've given up.
So looked down on. And now I feel like so many women who were kind of raised in that mold, like through college, like they're in their like late 30s and 40s, and they're like, oh man, like I feel like I'm lucky because I found comedy and that gave me a lot. But if I hadn't, I definitely would be like angry right now. Like, oh man, like this whole system basically convinced me not to have a family, to hate men, to not need men. Um, it's a big trick. I don't know. And you kind of, you're conditioned to talk shit about any woman who wants to stay, not work, and just raise a family and have kids. And it's I don't know. And I feel like the fog is kind of lifting on that for a
Well,
lot
I
of
think
women.
they get in their heads too. Like even the women who choose to stay home and raise families, so many of the ones I know in New York feel guilty about it. Feel
Wow.
like somehow they need to project something else to, in particular, their daughters. Like, but I used to work outside the home, or mom has this exciting thing going on. It's like I feel it makes me sad because it's like, well, why are
Yeah.
you doing that? You don't have to do that. Just own it, live it, love it, celebrate it, so that your kid then gets the message. This is totally cool. This is a great choice too.
Yeah, you shouldn't be shaming people for that. Because my mom was she was a stay-at-home mom. She got a job when I was in like first grade. But I wish that she kind of had more hobbies and had more passions outside the home, because when we all grew up and like moved out, like I felt like there was a big loss for her. Like she really was just pulling everybody to like, live the next town over or live in town. And it was like a lot of pressure to kind of like fill this big emotional need that she had. So I wish that my mom, had more going on, or like, a passion other than raising children, which is fine. But like, you should have a plan for when they eventually move out.
That's true. That is true. Otherwise, you're looking at a sad, sad day. I know. I worry about that now, honestly. And I have something going on professionally, but I'm still like your mom. I'm like, good little boys and girls never leave their mommies. That's written in
Aw.
the rule book. It's somewhere in the Bible. I'm going to find it. And like if I had the energy, I'd homeschool them. I want them to be with me. I don't want them to go off to
Aw.
college. I want them to, get married and stay in the next town. And I'm kind of worried that I have 3. So what if they don't settle in the same town? And then I can't just go live next door. Doug and I are going to have to be like a traveling circus, just tracking them down all over the country, unless I can
Aw.
convince them to stay in the Northeast.
Yeah. I think, I mean, just like love your kids, like I'm sure you're a great mom. But yeah, that's probably the worst thing, is to feel like pressure to be your parents' kind of everything, and that you can't really like
Oh, well, I'm
live your
doing it. I
life.
don't care. I remember being in the
Like,
elevator at Fox with
aw.
Stossel. I love John Stossel. And he's like, I'm like, well, what are you up to today? And he's like, well, taking my daughter off to med school. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And he's like, no, it's not. He goes,
Aw.
they leave you in the end. That's how this ends. They leave. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, they don't reveal that to you when they market parenthood, but it ends in ruination and despair.
Oh, that's sweet.
I know. I'm in denial. Now, there is one child who I've heard you, I haven't heard you take aim at her, but I've heard you imitate her in an amazing way. Can we talk for a minute about Greta Thunberg?
Oh, Greta. Yeah, she's like, what is she, 18 now?
Of her. Yeah, she's got to be 18 by now, right?
Yeah, she was another one. Like, I think I'm just inspired by unstable women. And I don't know, I feel like she was kind of her parents kind of like took advantage of her. Like, I think she was definitely some kind of a puppet. Like, ask the average kid, like, they're probably not really focused on the environment unless their parents kind of convince them that they are.
Mm-hmm.
Most kids are like, they want to have friends and they want their crusts off their sandwiches. And that's about it.
Right. Exactly. But she's been activated, and I don't know. You tell me, because when I watched that video, I was like, my God, there's so much anger, right? She's so offended at everything. Like, she's seething.
Why is she so angry? Like, I think it's because like she's being used as a puppet for a cause that she like may or may not fully understand or believe in. And it's like when she says like, oh, you've robbed me of my childhood, it's like, maybe you should be telling that to your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's her whole speech, like at the UN. It's just like, I think she's just upset nobody will sit with her at lunch. I think that's
You've
what
got
it's
to do
about.
it. I've got to hear your impression of her. It's so good. It's dead on.
Nobody will sit with me at lunch. One boy tried to cut my braid, and I said, "That's all I have. I hide candy in there." Someone tried to tell me that the boats I use to get to these meetings take up more gas than just flying. I said, "How dare you?" She's been
I don't know. I
quiet
feel
recently.
like that's another person who you're supposed to love and you're not allowed to criticize at all. And it's like, well, I mean, she was held up even in my daughter's school as like, this is an example of what a strong young woman looks like. And yes, okay, activism and taking, standing up for what you believe in, I like that in general. Like, I don't have a problem with young women or boys who decide to do that. But of course, it's always leftist causes that they choose, right? Like, they're not celebrating somebody who's out there at the March for Life as a 15-year-old, well-spoken, articulator of the cause and saying, yeah, right on. The young Lila Rose didn't get a lot of positive media coverage.
It's so easy. If you want to get any kid involved in something political, like just tell them they don't have to show up to school. They'll be on board. They probably won't care. Whatever it is. Oh, I don't have to go to school? This sounds good. Sign me up for the protest.
Don't leave me now. We got more coming up in 60 seconds. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Credible.com. Homeowners, listen up. If you need cash for things like paying down high interest debt, making home improvements, or a college education, you could get the money you need with a cash out refi through Credible.com. Because of today's starting home values, the amount of cash you can pull from your home could be higher than ever. And rates are so low that many homeowners who refinance are saving thousands on interest. On Credible.com, you can compare personalized rates from multiple lenders, all in one place, making it easy to find the best deal on a refinance. It only takes 3 minutes, and it does not impact your credit score at all. Rates are near historic lows right now, but they could rise at any time. So visit Credible.com today to see what you qualify for. That's Credible.com. Message from Credible Operations, Inc. NMLS number 1681276, www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. Refinance, get cash out, save on interest. Visit Credible.com. In researching you, I read that you said you feel a kinship with women who are in porn. How so? Is it porn stars or strippers? I can't remember.
I think maybe porn stars. I think I do feel a kinship with them because with porn stars and comedians, there's kind of like this like stigma over you that you're, you could never really like live a normal life and you're kind of like in a sense like an outcast. There is like a certain type of guy I think that would like never date a female comic and probably lots of guys who would never really settle down with a female porn star either. But it's kind of freeing in a way because we're not really our jobs. We're not really bound by like the usual constraints. Like you kind of can speak your mind. It's kind of like, porn stars and comics like have a lot of kind of like street sense and street smarts. And like, we like know people pretty well. We're both like pretty observant. We're both in a sense like in customer service in a way, but I guess, yeah, I don't have to bleach my butthole for what I do. Thank God.
Oh my God. No one should do that. That's not safe.
No.
But talk to your doctor. Yeah, when I was younger, back in my, I don't know, it was law school days or whatever, I got dragged to some strip clubs over the years, professional functions where you just go along to get along. And it was funny because all I kept wanting to do was an intervention for all the girls who were up there. Like, sweetheart, you don't have to do this. I got ideas for you. I'm going to open up a restaurant for you. And then I realized like, well, that's my own judgment, right? Like why assume they don't want to be doing it? Maybe there are women who want to celebrate their own bodies, who love feeling sexy, who get up there and say like, to me, this is a form of power and they don't need me to go rescue them.
True. And as I've gotten older, I've had that opinion more so, Megyn, like, oh, like you don't have to be doing this. But, I don't think it's their plan to do it for, longer than they need to. And yeah, no one should be forced into it. Like if you feel empowered by it and you feel strong, then go for it. And like, definitely make sure you're like saving your money and like, get a money manager. That's what I want to go to strip clubs and be like, do you guys have accountants? Like, are you saving for the future? Listen to me.
All in singles. So I went to, I had to go through a bunch of strip clubs after the Duke lacrosse fake rape case. I was covering it as a journalist in 2005, 2006. And the woman who was making the accusations against the 3 Duke lacrosse players was a stripper. And we were trying to track her down and track down people who knew her. So we were going through these strip clubs in Durham, North Carolina, my photog, my producer, and I. And we went into this one club and we're like trying to look like we're just there, as patrons. And he goes, "Are you press?" I'm like, "What? How'd you know?" He's like, "It's obvious." And my producer and the photographer are like, "It's you." They go, "We're their bread and butter. You're the tell." I'm like, "Am I the tell?" The guy's like, "Yeah." I go, "Too bad." And then we get into this discussion about, I'm like, I could be here to apply for a job. You don't know I'm press.
Yeah, totally.
And he's like, we got in discussion about what my stripper name would be. And then I asked the guy for a suggestion. And he said, first he goes, "Sugar." And then I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, "Confectioner Sugar." And my full name.
Wow.
The like
funny.
whitest, pastiest sugar.
I think my stripper name would be something that kind of sounds fancy, but it's not, like something like pubic zirconia. I don't know.
That was not a good moment for me to be sipping my water. I like that. I like that a lot. Wasn't it supposed to be the street you grew up on and your first pet?
Oh, right.
We're not supposed to say that on the air, though. Don't give that information up because that's how people hack
right. Because that's hackable.
Yeah.
That fish is long dead. Yeah.
Yeah. What?
I had a fish. That was my first pet.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a fish. I won it at a carnival. And then I had 2 gerbils. And I came home from school one day in 5th grade and my mom was like, I guess they were 2 girls and one had like eaten or attacked the other one.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I still don't know if that's really what happened because I didn't see the body. It just was, I just came back.
Gerbils are dark.
Gerbils are dark. I don't think we talk about that enough. I think they're a little bit malicious. They have a plan.
They eat their babies. My brother used to have gerbils. He kept them in these like fish tanks in his room and they eat their little purple babies. Sorry, but it's disgusting and it happens. And here's another thing. As his younger sister, he's 5 years older. I wasn't allowed in his room. I wasn't allowed to touch the gerbils. And they were named like Fresca and Choo Choo and Santa Claus and Edward, which was my dad's name. I don't know if he liked that. So of course I sneaked in and did play with the gerbils. And one time I was like 5, I think. My brother was 10. I sneaked in there and I picked up one of the gerbils by the tail, the way I saw my brother do. And the tail fell off.
No!
The gerbil was little tailless. His round bottom was running around the tank without a tail. I was holding the tail.
Did he have gerbil leprosy? Like, I don't, how did that happen?
So I threw the tail in the garbage can and covered it up with a bunch of stuff. And I went downstairs and I was like, "Mom, I want to go to bed right now." My mom said, "Megyn, it's 7:00. I said, "I don't care. I want to go to bed right now." I turned around, I went upstairs and I heard my mom say, "What'd she do?"
Oh,
They knew. And my brother came home. He was so mad. And for years I lived with the shame of this attack that I had inadvertently launched on the innocent little Fresca. Then I find out, Chrissie, it's a thing. Gerbils shed their tails. I was innocent.
Wow. All this time you've been living with that shame.
Right. Who knows the damage I caused?
All these years
in my
you
own
could have been playing. You could have been playing pin the tail on the donkey with no shame all these years.
Right. Why are they asking me to play that? Why are they looking at me? Why do they think I'm going to do well?
Why do they think I know where it goes?
In the garbage?
Yeah. I pinned it on the garbage.
We all have childhood trauma. Some of us work it out on the air as talking heads, and some of us work it out on the stage as comedians. And I love that we have you doing it. Closing question before we go. Why do you do your act in like a nice dress? I think it's awesome. Something about it is very appealing, but I just wanted to know why.
I think, thank you for saying that, because I got advice kind of early on in my career from a very well-known, like kind of like comic legend, I can't remember her name. Of course, I can't remember her name right now.
She's a comic legend, but I have no idea who she is.
Gladys. Her name's Gladys. Gladys crap. What's her? There's the only one Gladys in comedy. She used to run like a bunch of rooms, but she told me, I remember like I was a couple of years in. She's like, no, you really should be wearing like pants and a jacket. She basically was describing like Ellen during the 90s is how I should dress. And I just was like, yeah, no, that doesn't feel good to me. Like I like to wear heels and a dress on stage because, and even I thought the pandemic would change me too, because I was like, spent a lot of time in sweats. But it hasn't, because I feel like kind of ready. Like when I put my heels on, it's like, okay, I'm kind of this character. I'm a more exaggerated, funny version of my usual self. So it makes me feel like, okay, I'm out, I'm ready. Like I'm bringing my best. And, you know, I just never I felt like I never looked good in pants. Like that was part of it too. And I just feel like, you know, if I'm feeling like dressed for a night out, like I kind of want the crowd to, it's really psychosomatic, I guess. And another part of it was like, you know, when I was starting in comedy, like I always had a day job. I would always like, you know, leave my job at like 5 or 6 o'clock. I'd be like on the subway, putting more makeup on, you know, taking a cardigan off, like transforming on the way to the show. And I figured out like I have to wear something that can go from like work to the stage. And that
it's very Mrs. Maisel.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It couldn't be jeans because you got to kind of dress up for whatever day job I had. But I really would just be kind of like transforming. I would be like changing shoes on the subway, like a lot of changing shoes. But yeah, like, oh yeah, Mrs. Maisel would be great. I wish I had her costume budget, but yeah, I do like
she's
to
not
feel
funny. Don't you think? I don't, she's not funny at all.
No, she's a little, I love that show for the costumes and,
Same.
yeah, it was
And the
beautiful.
settings. Yes.
But
I enjoy the show, and I love Tony, is it Shalhoub? He's so
yeah,
funny.
he's so good. He's so good. I think I met him once. He's the nicest
But
guy.
her stand-up, the routines are not, I never laugh.
No, if you give any regular comic like her material, it would get no response from the crowd.
Right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, I dress up like that just to kind of feel like a lady, kind of to feel like I'm bringing it, you know?
Yes, I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, sometimes even when I haven't been on the air for a while, because nobody sees me, when then I get the bells and whistles, right? I get my hair done, I get my makeup on, I put on a nice outfit. I'm like, okay, there I am, right? The grown up version of me. Anyway, listen, when are you coming to Jersey?
Oh, okay. I'll be at Jinx, which is right on the boardwalk there at Point Pleasant Beach, on July 20th.
I don't know Jinx, but if I go, can I see you? Are you going to help?
Of course, I'll get you comps. Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Megyn.
Oh, nice. That could be fun. I'll think of some sort of way to heckle you. I don't know. I know what it'll be like. I'll try.
Aw.
I'll tee you up on Greta or doggy style.
Thanks.
Awesome. Listen, Chrissie, all the best to you. I wish you continued success.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm such a fan of yours.
Want to remind you that if you want to go see Chrissie on tour, she's on this national tour, you can find out all her dates by going to ChrissieMayr.com. So it's IE at the end of Chrissie, and there's no E or O in Mayr. MAYR.com. MAYR.com. Okay, so check it out. And last but not least, you can get The Megyn Kelly Show on Amazon now, on Amazon Music. Amazon's trying to make a bigger play in podcasting. Smart move, Amazon. And The Megyn Kelly Show is available there. You can actually just make it super easy on yourself by saying, yo, Alexa, play Megyn Kelly. Play The Megyn Kelly Show. And she will be a nice intermediary for all of us. Anyway, check it out. In the meantime, go ahead and subscribe to the show, download the show, give me a nice 5-star rating and a good review. I'd love to hear from you, and we will talk on Wednesday. Thanks for listening to The Megyn Kelly Show. No BS, no agenda, and no fear. The Megyn Kelly Show is a Devil May Care media production in collaboration with Red Seat Ventures.